Darksburg is a game that has some good core gameplay, and I had fun playing through it at first, but I was also a little disappointed. So let's get into it. Darksburg is an ARPG roguelite that takes a lot of inspiration from Left 4 Dead. The goal of the game is to fight through 5 different areas full of zombies, mini-bosses, and defeat the final boss to clear the run. People have also compared Darksburg to MOBA games, and the character abilities and controls feel very similar to League. Each of the playable characters has a passive ability, 3 normal abilities, and 1 ultimate ability with a really long cooldown. They recently added controller support to the game, and that's how I played the game, with controller, because I found the normal PC controls to be clunky. But the controller controls also had some jank as well, especially with the ability auto-aiming. As you play through the game, you level up and unlock traits that modify your abilities in various ways, usually by giving them an extra effect, extra damage, or an extra use or extra charge. These character traits allow you to customize the ability of your character, but there also aren't that many traits in the game, so you pretty much seen them all in a couple runs with each character. Along the lines of character variety, I really wish there was a couple more characters to play around with, and I wish there were more mechanics to explore. Despite having only 5 characters, a couple of them still feel very similar because they have overlapping mechanics that make them feel less unique. So for example, 2 characters had items you could find on the ground, gave them temporary health, and reduced the cooldown of an ability. These 2 characters use the same mechanic. You can also find chests on your run that have healing items or artifacts, which are items you can carry that give a powerful effect on a longer cooldown. These chests also give you gold to buy items between areas, and a purple currency that you can carry across runs, which we'll talk about later. Darksburg is also a party-based game, and it's really designed and balanced around multiplayer, especially having 4 people play at once. Even when you're playing alone, you're playing with between 1 and 3 AI characters. One plus of Darksburg multiplayer though, is that they do have dedicated servers. However, I often struggled to find a game with randoms because there just weren't any in my region and nobody joined mine. It's not a very large player base. Additionally, while they have this online multiplayer, there is no local co-op at this time. On that note, the AI is actually surprisingly good at the game, at least for the base normal difficulty. The AI becomes less helpful after that, but if you're struggling, consider adding more AI. A couple other interesting combat mechanics. There is both a permanent health and temporary health. Basically, permanent health is like a normal health bar that is harder to restore, whereas temporary health decays over time, but is much easier to replenish with abilities and items you find. Also, when you are down, you can be revived by your teammates, but you will lose 1/3 of your health bar each time, so your total health pool decreases. On the 3rd down, you're dead and need to be resurrected from an outhouse that you'll find throughout the map. And it's pretty easy to do that, so you're never out of the game for that long. If you played Left 4 Dead, this should all sound very similar, and I'm assuming a lot of these mechanics are directly inspired by those mechanics in the Left 4 Dead series. I usually talk about RNG and progression in separate sections in my roguelite reviews, but I'm going to lump them together for Darksburg because of the randomness and variety it's just lacking within each run. A lot of the randomness involved is in what items you get in the chest, what traits you unlock for your character when you level up, and what events you find along the way. However, since the item, trait, and event pools just aren't that large, there isn't much of a place for RNG to matter. I would say the largest place where the RNG matters are in terms of finding certain artifacts that you get on your runs from the chests, or getting certain healing items. So the healing salve allows you to restore part of your health bar that was lost when you were downed, and that's just a much more powerful healing item than the other alternatives. Where randomness is really lacking is in map and enemy variety. Once you've beaten the game once, you've pretty much seen every enemy there is, and you've seen all the game areas. There's no new variety to explore there. There are 5 mini-bosses, and so you won't get all of them on each run, you won't get all of them on your first run, but besides that, there isn't that much else to explore in terms of pure gameplay. In terms of progression, unlocking the curios is one of 2 main forms of progression in Darksburg. Basically, as you play through the game, you unlock this purple currency across runs through opening chests and beating the final boss. This currency allows you to buy curios and curio slots. And these curios give you various buffs, such as increasing your health pool or buffing your damage in various ways. There's also a lot of variety in these curios, but they mainly serve as a way to make you stronger across runs, though they do add some build variety as well, so it's a kind of mixed vertical horizontal progression format. However, unlocking them is kind of weird, because you don't see what curio you are unlocking when you pay for it, only its general type, such as utility or survivability. It also takes a sizable chunk of time to unlock all these curios, so there is some replayability added there, but I also wish each individual curio wasn't quite as hard to unlock. It takes a while to really get fully kitted. And there are also some difficulty or ascension levels, again adding some more vertical progression. I actually beat the game on my first run through it, so the base difficulty isn't that hard, but it's also easy to get overwhelmed even if your run is going well. So these ascension levels add some more standardized and some randomized modifiers for each run that require you to adjust your playstyle a little bit. Here, again, the modifier pool isn't that big. I think I got the same modifier on my first 3 Ascension runs, which, shouldn't really happen if there's that many modifiers. And so again, some more variety is needed. There are also alternative skins you can unlock for each character, like killing chickens you randomly come across on each run, which is a nice small addition to the game, but isn't going to keep you coming back for that long. As a whole, there just isn't enough replayability in Darksburg. Once you've played the game a couple times, you've seen most of what there is to see. The progression that is there doesn't save it either, because the Ascension levels weren't that satisfying for me to climb, because the game still lacked that gameplay variety, and while the curios had a lot of potential to be a good unlocking structure or dynamic, the pacing felt off to me, or maybe the pacing was fine, but the core lack of gameplay variety made me not want to unlock them. All of this meant that whenever I played Darksburg, I would really enjoy my first run, or maybe my first 2 runs, but I would very quickly feel done with it. It just lacked that one more run feel that you get from a really good roguelite. So what happened? The game has a fun core gameplay, but struggles with variety and replayability in some other areas. I was very confused as well because the game had previously advertised other game modes, such as a versus game mode where you can play as powerful zombies against human survivors. But that game mode was not there at launch. After doing some digging, it seems that this game was never really intended to be a roguelite, and the game had a different structure. I'm repeating myself here, but it was basically Left 4 Dead in ARPG format. After not really taking off throughout its early access period, it looks like the developers decided to cut their losses and repackage the game as a roguelite. But they didn't really give it a lot of what you would expect from a roguelite, which makes sense, because, that wasn't their original plan. They also removed the versus game mode, which is unfortunate, because I was looking forward to playing that, and they just left a lot of the game unfinished. You can actually still find the versus game mode if you dig through the settings, but you can't play it. One thing I will say to developers' credit is they do seem to be listening to some community feedback, and they recently did a medium-sized balance patch with controller support added as well. So what's my verdict on Darksburg? The core game is actually quite fun, and it has some real potential. I really liked playing through the game in brief sittings, and the overall structure is nice, but it's just missing so much. It's missing enemy variety, it's missing map variety, it could use more classes, it could use more upgrades or traits for each class. Frankly, it just feels unfinished as it is right now. It feels like it's still in early access despite having its full release. And because of that, I can't recommend buying it unless they add more to the game, you really don't care about that lack of replayability, or you can just get it really cheap or for free. It has a good fun factor, but not a good lasting fun factor. I really hope this is a game I can come back to in a year or so and see all these issues fixed, but I'm not really holding my breath. Please like this video to help me out if you enjoyed it, and be sure to check out more of my reviews in the description down below. Thanks for watching.